VimJam, a 10-day game jam hosted by Devlog, came around recently, and since I had so much fun last year making my game Pushyworm, it would be given that I'll be participating again this year. This time, however, I wanted to form a team to spread the workload a bit. Given my music and art skills are quite limited, I reached out to my buddy MightyJor to see if he was interested in doing music and sounds for the game. We had teamed up to make a game before and had worked great together, and I absolutely love his music, so I was thrilled to get him on board. He would end up doing a bunch more than just music and sounds though. I'll get to that later in this devlog. I had also recently came across Turtle on YouTube. I instantly fell in love with the art that he was making for his game Gully Washer. He mentioned in his last devlog that he was looking for other devs to team up with in game jams. So I tried my luck and reached out to him. To my absolute joy, he was on board too, and so Mighty Turtlefish was born. The jam requirement of Boss was released early, but the theme would only be known at the start of the jam. I jumped on a call with Turtle and MightyJor to talk about ideas. We initially started thinking about an office theme, with an employee feeling on edge from following his boss's orders. We then leaned into another idea of a toy action figure trying to navigate through a level, with a giant kid in the background causing mayhem by placing obstacles in the toy's path. We continued on the call to talk through this concept, and ended up on the idea of the toy falling into the toy box and needing to collect his body parts to regain abilities such as jumping and dashing, which allow him to climb his way back out of the toy box. At the same time, it would need to avoid other toys being thrown into the toy box by the boy who acts as the boss in the game. Essentially, it was a mini Metroidvania with Celeste-like movement and getting over a climbing objective with similar punishing falls and setbacks for making mistakes in the game. Needless to say, we were getting excited for this project. We jumped off the call and got to work. I started working on coding player movement in my engine of choice, GameMaker Studio 2. Turtle sent over some art later that day that I could put into the game quite quickly. MightyJor was also having great progress with music. We spent the next few days as a team chipping away at putting a core game together. MightyJor kept working on music and had also agreed to work on a story for the game. Turtle was churning out a bunch of character art and environment art, and me coding the movement and bringing in the art. A few days in, we had a fun animated playable character. I had come across a cool shadow effect tutorial recently and thought it would look great in our game. The original tutorial involves drawing a surface to the whole room. However, surfaces has size limits, and the room in our game exceeded that, so I had to make some modifications to the script for the surface to follow the camera and only draw what was needed. I also expanded the shadow effect so it only draws in the back tile set and not over transparent areas, so shadows only appear where they are supposed to. I wanted to add some emphasis on picking up upgrades, so I added an effect where the game pauses, the camera zooms in on the player and the background darkens. The inspiration here is the upgrade effect that happens in Hollow Knight. We would later add a graphic and a tune to go with the upgrade effect. We had been progressing well in the game, and MightyJor had mentioned he would have some time later in the week to also help with some coding, such as implementing the menus, settings and sound systems. I thought this was great, as it would allow me more time to focus on getting the core gameplay and movement as tight as I could. He had also sent some mock-ups for level design, which I thought was also awesome, as I hadn't even thought about it at this point. So at a few days in, we had a moving character who could collect abilities for double jumping and dashing. He would only get one double jump and one dash for each jump, and this would reset once hitting the ground. At this time, the character movement already felt quite fun to play with, but then some awesome suggestions came through from the team. Reset dash once hitting the wall. This would allow the player to traverse up wider passages. The ability to look up and down to reveal parts of the level you can't see at the current camera height. And my favourite one, being able to jump out of the dash and being able to dash from the ground. These extra abilities really expanded the player movements and created a much bigger depth for the game. Combining the dash and then a jump right after would allow you to launch the player much further during a jump. Sure, at this point we were borrowing a bunch from Celeste, but it just added so much to the game and would make for some great speedrun strategies. We wanted to include a bonus collectible as an extra challenge for those that wanted to take it. As our character was called Jack, we went with beans. The ideas came from magic beans appearing in the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. An extra parallel in that story and in our game is that both the Jack characters are climbing something, which we thought was pretty cool. With a few days left, I was heavily involved in tuning the character movement and working on other game mechanics, such as tacks and falling toys that hurts the player and knocks him back. At this point, nothing had really been done with level design, with the exception of MightyJor's mock-ups. He was kind enough to start building these out, and by the time the jam was over, took on the majority of the level building work, with some input from the rest of the team. He went way above and beyond where he originally signed up for, but we think the game is so much better now for it. I think the obstacles and the tracks he set up in the game are awesome. With the game near completion, we reached out to a couple of game dev buddies for some playtesting and feedback. I had sent the game to Theta, who is an absolute master of Celeste and does a bunch of speedrunning on stream. Link to his Twitch channel is in the description. He was able to give some valuable feedback on the player movement, in particular making the wall slide stick longer so it was easier to jump out of it. He also gave some level design feedback that really helped us clean and polish things up. He also brought up the point about walking into an attack from the side, which he thought should not hurt the player. With this feedback, we ended up adding safe collision areas to the base of the attacks that also allowed the player to stand on them if they were sitting on their side. I also reached out to another mate, Papercuts. He posts super entertaining videos here on YouTube. Be sure to check him out. He pointed out some areas for us to address that may have been too difficult, had feedback on music volume balance, and suggested adding a way to get back into the menu from the game. As an extra bonus, MightyJor asked his wife to add some narration to the game, and with those final updates, we had our full game. It was super awesome working with Foster Turtle and MightyJor, and I don't think the process could have run any smoother than it did. We are super proud of the game that we have produced and have been getting really positive feedback from those that have played it. Players in particular have commended the beautiful art that Foster Turtle made and the awesome music that MightyJor made. Those guys rock. With regards to complaints about the game, several people have mentioned it could be too punishing if you collide with attack, and the game continually knocks you on to more attacks until you lose a bunch of ground. I guess this could be addressed later by making the level layout a bit more forgiving and placing more safe areas. Another issue with the game is the dropping toys are random and might potentially put the player in an unfair, unavoidable situation where they might have to take a hit. This is something I would need to look at later to see if I can come up with a better solution to make it more predictable for the player. And that was my experience making a game for VimJam 2 with an awesome team. If you want to check out the game, find the link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you wanted to further support my work, I would be super grateful if you wishlisted my main game on Steam, Pushy Worm, which, as I mentioned, just happens to be the game that I conceived in last year's VimJam. Thank you for watching all the way through, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.